LeBron and I get along just fine. Now, the LA Times reported last week that LeBron's associates have not been happy with Walton's coaching this season, but an anonymous front office source said nothing is going to happen with Luke. There hasn't even been any talk about it, and there won't be any talks about it. Luke will definitely finish the season, and he has the full support. So any talk in the media or on social media can be put to bed about Luke. He's not going anywhere.
Yeah, for the time being, you're right.
I do think he's going to finish the season.
Yes.
Now, after the season, different conversation, because I think there's going to be a lot of changes made with the Lakers. And there's a lot that we still have to see what happens. They may win a playoff series and everyone's opinion changes. Like, if they don't make the playoffs, there are going to be significant changes around the entire team. So we have to see how the rest of the season plays out. It seems like he has the full support of, most importantly, Jeannie Buss, who seems to be fighting for him.
Everybody has support until they don't.
Right, but
So
that's anything. But I think in this situation, it is important that at least the mantra from the front office seems to be, he's not going anywhere, he's not going anywhere. And at this point in the season, what would it change anyway? The person you're going to bring in is likely not the person that would be there next year. It just deads the season. You still have to get to the playoffs. This is not an option for LeBron James. So shaking up that situation, to me, doesn't fix anything. After the season, we'll talk.
Joy Taylor with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Lie News.
I do think Luke Walton is dead coach walking, though. I think if they don't make the playoffs, he's out. And if they do, it's probably as an 8 seed, they get dominated by Golden State, and it's easy for the LeBron camp and anti-Luke factions to point and say, see, we're not even close. And with that, I go to New York via the Coward Global Satellite Network. Doug Gottlieb co-hosting First Things First. I mean, you have good contacts throughout the organization. I just don't see any way that Luke Walton's the coach in a year from now. Do you, Doug?
Yeah, I mean, if they make a run, make the playoffs, get out of the first round, I think there's still a possibility there. I think it's a lot like Joy said. They're going to make some changes. They're trying to figure out who's with us and who we want. I mean, remember, I think the Roethlisberger note from Joy was amazing. She's right that whoever the quarterback is, whoever the leader is, has to take some of the blame. Some of this blame does go to LeBron James. Remember, not just in the fact that he got hurt. I mean, there's things you can't control, but also some of these players are the ones he selected. We can talk all we want about Magic and Rob Pelinka, but Magic and Rob Pelinka met for 3 hours the night he signed, and then these players were signed right afterwards. This was part of a plan, and I don't think that for the first time in his career, LeBron James had a hands-off approach to who was going to play alongside him when he had a chance to rebuild a team. So they made some bad choices, chose guys that he felt like were competitors over shooters, and what they've been missing so far in the season is shooting. But look, Luke will fall on the sword if they come up short. Let's see how the last month and a half, 2 months of the season play out, how the playoffs play out, because when they're healthy, they're playing great basketball from a coach's perspective. And here's what I mean. Coaches can't make shots. He can't. They should have held on to Brook Lopez. That wasn't his call. So they have essentially 2 backup centers. But they were playing great defense before LeBron got hurt, top 7 in every defensive category. That's coaching. And they get pretty good shots when they run their offense, and they've evolved into a team that plays the way LeBron wants to play when LeBron has the ball and is dominating in the second quarter and the fourth quarter. So I think he's done a good job. I agree with you. He probably falls on the sword, probably loses his job at the end of this year, but there's still a lot of ball game left. Let's see how it plays out.
In the history of sports, only 2 athletes I can think of were very successful by their 4th team. Roger Clemens, Astros, I would submit to you steroids played a factor, and Brett Favre, 4th team being Minnesota, where he had 1 great year followed by an awful year, and he was done. This is LeBron's 4th team. I saw a story yesterday, Lakers a little concerned about the groin injury. Let's be honest, Doug. You and I are not sports historians, but we follow history. Is it quite possible after 200 extra playoff games over the last 8 years, we've seen the best of LeBron. He now plays in spurts, and, it's topped out. It's quite possible our expectations are not aligned where they should be.
Yes. Yes. I mean, it's possible that Father Time is catching up to him. It doesn't mean he can't play. Now, does that mean we have to adjust our expectations? Sure. It also means that he's got to use his head, and Kobe Bryant suggested he play from the post more, but can he continue to facilitate? That's the thing I'm fascinated by. Look, Kobe's game had no second gear. He has no second pitch. It's fastball, 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 fastball. He couldn't evolve to being the second best or third best player on his team. LeBron, what's amazing about him is LeBron is probably going to go down as the all-time scoring king in the history of the NBA, and scoring's not actually what he enjoys doing the most. He enjoys setting teammates up. So the question becomes, if he has lost a step, and if this is healthy LeBron where he doesn't go by anybody, and I don't know if you saw the stat, 41% of his shots since coming off the groin injury have been three-pointers, as opposed to 29% beforehand, meaning he's staying outside, shooting a bunch of threes. If this version of LeBron, it still could be good enough. My questions are actually, what does he do at the defensive end? He used to be the magic elixir. Put him on anything defense. Put him on Derrick Rose in the NBA playoffs. And now you're trying to hide LeBron James defensively. That's a dramatic change. You can still get a lot out of him, but I do think a blind man can see he's not blowing by anybody anymore, and there's a lot less double teams coming his way.
Kevin Durant, and it's been documented, Doug, wants to be considered superior to LeBron. I like that about him. I think Brady felt that way with Montana. I think it's an awesome thing when athletes are aspirational. That is not a criticism of KD. When he beat LeBron in the first finals, 10 to 15% of the people said he's better. They washed away. Last year, about 30% of the people said he may be better. If he wins this year, I would submit to you it's probably closer to about half who say LeBron couldn't make the playoffs, KD's the final MVP. But if he stays in Golden State and wins a fourth in a row, which Michael couldn't do, I would argue, Doug, a lot of people like you and I are having to fend off people who are arguing, that guy's better than LeBron. Why would you leave that?
Look, LeBron's chasing ghosts, and KD's chasing a guy who's right in front of him, and even when he hits him, people are like, nah, he didn't hit him hard enough. Why would he leave it? I think because he's chasing that LeBron Cleveland title. You know, hey, LeBron went to Cleveland where they hadn't won in half a century, and he won it. Why can't you go to New York? You know, why can't you go to New York? I think that would be it, and I would think that, you know, at some point it tops out in the there's Clay and Steph, and they seem to have their own language and have their own relationship. You're like, and then the Draymond thing. You know, Draymond is right now a shell of the player he was 2 or 3 years ago. But because he's created this image of who he is, Draymond kind of gets a pass. I don't know why you would leave. Maybe just looking for something new. I think he's chasing the LeBron title, and that LeBron won one for Cleveland. Look how the place went crazy. If you can be the guy who wins one in New York, you put yourself head and tails above really anybody outside of maybe Jordan if you can win a title in New York. It's always been that way. But look at the names that have tried, coaches and players, and they have all come up short since 1973.
So Antonio Brown, as Joy just told us, had a No,
that's Mr. Big Chest.
Yeah,
Mr. Big Chest.
Okay, Mr. Big Chest met with Mr. Rooney, Mr. Average Chest, and it does appear they have both acknowledged they're separating. Would you roll the dice on AB? Oh, Mr. Big Chest.
It depends what the makeup of my organization is. You were talking about Bill Belichick, right? Like, as much as Bill Belichick has the perfect organization, they could not make it work with Chad Johnson, who, by the way, that's the guy that Antonio Brown grew up idolizing. And that's because Chad Johnson was never where he was supposed to be. Like the whole thing is you have to have talent, but you also have to understand what they're trying to accomplish and where you're supposed to be. But you have to have the head coach on board, the general manager on board, and the quarterback on board. And, oh, yeah, by the way, Antonio Brown today let the cat out of the bag. Does he have a problem with Ben Roethlisberger? Sure. Should Mike Tomlin have been more discipline-oriented? Sure. But what's the real reason all this has taken place? He has 3 years left in the contract with no guaranteed money. That's the deal that he signed. That's the rework contract that he and Drew Rosenhaus negotiated. This deal isn't about anything else other than getting paid. At his age, he'll be 31 next year. He saw Des Bryant plant one step, hadn't even played a game at 30 years old for the New Orleans Saints, tore his Achilles tendon, may never play football again. If he does, it'll be at pennies on the dollar. He wants guaranteed money. That's what this is about. This isn't about all this other stuff that he's making it about. It's about money. it more so than about respect or getting along with people. The problem is there's very few organizations that are going to take a shot on a guy at 31 who wants a new contract, who when things go bad or somebody bothers him, he may bail on the team like Antonio Brown did. I'm not arguing his talent, even his competitive nature when he's on the field, but walking away from his own team when you got one game to win to get into the Super Bowl and then some of the act afterwards, he seems mentally unbalanced and one guy that which you have to have everything lined up if you want to make a move to go sign him.
Yeah, he's leaving, I think, the best spot for him in the league. Doug Gottlieb, first things first, co-hosting this week with Chris Broussard. Good seeing you, bud.
Great to see you.
It is very hard for two alphas to exist in the same room, especially when one's a person and one's a franchise. That about LeBron next. The latest data breach affects emails and passwords. Yeah, there's a big one out there right now. 2.2 billion accounts have been breached. So it's worth remembering and reminding you. If you don't currently use a different password for every website or service, you may want to change it now. Yeah, information stolen in a data breach could be used to commit ID theft. Well, it's a good thing LifeLock Identity Theft Protection has added the power of Norton Security to help protect against threats on your devices that you, as a regular person, simply wouldn't spot. How could you? There's a problem. There's a U.S. agent ready to fix it. Nobody prevents all theft or